the plans for the year. I would want to seek your support in approving the same during this AGM so that we can be able to assist ourselves as investors and our organization at large to perform even better and sustain itself for the long term. Overall, we will be doing a lot of review, as we have done during the year 2021, to our business model, our revenue mix, and our organization structure. This is the foundation that will help us ensure a very, very committed, reflective, supportive organization and reactive organization in the year 2022 and going forward, where we are modeling the organization around business lines. As you saw during the introduction of our key, members of the board and staff, we have a housing unit now, a head of housing unit to focus purely on housing revenues. We have an investment manager to focus 100% on the business development area and related aspects, including, investor relations and member engagement. We have a real estate head who will focus on all aspects of the lands and our land-related projects. But we also have other aspects of the corporate effectiveness that we are putting in place. We, for example, foresee a strong support of business performance coming from ICT, and we will try to beef up the ICT area. We have modeled how much each of our salespeople can be able to convert in a month, given the value or size of our projects, and determined that we would need to beef up that team for us to be able to hit the 2 billion in gross turnover that we want to achieve, and 2.5 billion in cash flow that we want to collect, or what we call money in bank, that we want to have collected by the end of the year. For us to achieve this, we have done a mapping of the internal capabilities and identified the areas where we need to build better muscle, but we will also continue to ensure that we are not wasteful, and where we have fat in the organization, we are going to cut it and ensure we are lean. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, fellow investors, I want to wrap up by saying the year has been good, 2021, in as far as we could. We may not have achieved 100%, but it was still a year of many firsts. This is the year where we attained the highest gross turnover we have ever had, where we hit about 1.1 billion in gross turnover. It is the year where we have had the highest number of members. Of course, cumulatively, we are now very close to 5,000 members. It is a year where we have been able to have the highest year-on-year growth on the net profit, of course, coming from a very low figure. It is the year where we have had the highest value in our assets, hitting above 5 billion, and quite happy with that performance. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to reiterate again the focus by our board in delivering to our vision to be the investment partner of choice in East Africa. And as our acting CEO will say, even beyond East Africa to the rest of the world. I want to take this moment to appreciate all our stakeholders, internal and external, who have supported us through the journey in the year 2021. To our members of staff, keep up the good work. We have attained big milestones in 2021, and I'm sure we'll do a lot more in 2022. To my fellow board members, it has been quite a ride, a lot of grind. You have put in a lot of hours. Thank you. Keep it up. Let us ensure that we maintain the same and deliver even greater performance in the year. To our service providers who have supported us through the year and helped us to achieve these milestones, thank you. Those who are present and those who are not. And to all our members and membership for your great ideas, for your consistent appreciation and feedback to the members of staff and to the board. Thank you. Indeed, iron sharpens iron as a man sharpens another. The future is bright. Let's go beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair Peter Bishangi, for your elaborate report. Some of the things that I pick up from the report was that we will ensure that we have customer service integrity. If you purchase a product from us and it has issues, we will fix it. Okay, moving on. I'll take this opportunity to invite, before I do that, because what we want to do is we'll bundle the two reports together, the report from our chair and the report from Supervisory, under the question and answer. So I'll request for a proposer and a seconder to that particular report before Peter Mukera, the chair of Supervisory, takes us through his report. You can use the chat tool, or you can also use the number that is on the screen to reach us. So we need a proposer and a seconder for the chairman's report. Good morning.
Yes, I'm trying to propose for the next report.
And your name and membership number, please.
Dr. Katu, 1655.
Thank you very much, Dr. Katu, for proposing. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, somebody has already proposed, Veronica Okello Achieng, member number, or seconded, member number 70. Thank you, Veronica. I think then we can proceed. Peter Mukera, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, members of SIC, our investors. Guest of honor, Madam Remo, Cooperative Society, our investors, board members, my supervisory committee team, SIC staff. I welcome you to this 13th AGM. I am Peter Mukera, representing the Supervisory Committee as a chair, and I work alongside Beth Mwangi as a secretary as well as Rebecca Bisanjo. The Supervisory Committee mandated is spelled out under Section 28 of the Cooperative Society Act, Cap 490, and the bylaws of the society. The committee is tasked with the responsibility of counter-checking the effectiveness of the society internal control through carrying out investigation as may be necessary to establish whether the management of the society uses managerial tools like budgets, trial balance, economic reports, and long-term plans and others, and make recommendations to the Board of Management. Looking at the general, as the world economy continues to battle the effects of the global pandemic, COVID-19, Kenya economic took a significant strand in terms of growth in the year 2021. Noticeably, changes were recorded in the various sectors of the Kenyan economy as compared to the previous year, year 2020. According to the central bank, the inflation rate stood at 6.5 compared to the previous year at 5.4. The economic expanded by 5.1 compared to 4.0 in the previous year. This improvement recorded in the financial year 2021 is attributed to the various government interventions. To start with, restrictions orchestrated by the global pandemic were relaxed, thus freeing up the activities in various sectors of the economy. These business activities in the country were supported by the vaccination drive implemented by the government. The Supervisory Committee undertook a number of activities in the year 2021. We are pleased to present the following reports. Looking at the championing of good governance and ethical practice. Good corporate governance and adherence to ethical practice is a key achievement in organization goal, achieving the organization goal. During the year under review, Supervisory Committee implemented a number of initiatives in the effort to uplift governance and ethical standards at both the managerial level and the board level. One was about whistleblowing policy. In line with the best practice, the Supervisory Committee crafted a whistleblowing policy that will go a long way in entrenching ethical values in the organization. Through this framework, employees and other stakeholders have been provided with an avenue through which they can bring to light any misconduct perpetrated by an officer of the society. This will ensure that the organization assets are protected and used for the intended purpose. The other aspect is about sensitization on ethical practices. Supervisory Committee through Internal Department and Risk Management Department undertook ethical trainings to the staff members. 4 ethical and governance training sessions were conducted in the year 2021. The main objective was to expose staff members to the conduct of ethics and governance in the organization. Such session has been instrumental in equipping the staff members with the tools that enable them to adopt ethical practices in their day-to-day responsibility. Further, the impact of these sessions has enabled staff to have ability to criticize, analyze ethical issues in the organization, including reporting on unethical practices. This has gone a long way to safeguard the asset of the society. Under the collaboration, we have continued to collaborate with the board in providing an oversight on activity implemented by the SIC management. The quarterly joint meeting has provided an opportunity for the committee to update the board on the audit findings, other items that are deemed to be significant. In this way, the committee has facilitated the board with such needed information for efficient oversight. In the year under the review, the board utilized the services of Supervisory Committee in reviewing areas marked to be of high risks. The ad hoc audit request by the board were aimed to address the specific concern in the organization's operation. There were 4 audit reviews which were done outside the plans as requested by the board. We have also updated the board on a monthly basis on the tracker for implementation of the key audit recommendation. This is done through an audit tracker, which is basically highlighting all the significant findings, agreed action points to address the risk or the weaknesses that are identified, and the status, where the audit issues have been implemented or whether the audit issue has been implemented or not. This approach has ensured timely closure of audit issues, which brings to light areas, areas with implementation challenges. This collaboration yields full fruits by continuous strengthening of the organization's internal control environment. Looking at the audit, a number of audits were conducted during the financial year 2021. These were aimed to identify internal control gaps and weaknesses, with a view of prescribing mitigation measures. The recommendation formulated went a long way in addressing the gaps, thus improving the society environment. On internal control environment, the evaluation is aimed to provide reasonable assurances to the management and stakeholders that the organization is operating in accordance with the organization policy, industry standards, and the regulatory requirements. In the year under review, we conducted a number of reviews aimed to evaluate the compliance with the internal policies as well as applicable laws and regulations. The society internal control environment has improved over the years. Thus, the audit recommendation, through the audit recommendation, the process has enhanced to weed out inefficiencies and wastage. The process of land acquisition has been strengthened to ensure that due diligence is done by more than one party. This has cured the risk of the society onboarding the project. Secondly, the process engaging service provider has been reviewed to ensure that value of money is achieved. This has led to better and quality of service, especially in value added of projects and efficiency in transferring of mother title from the society to the society and finally to the purchaser. The internal policies and procedure has been revamped based on the weaknesses highlighted in the periodic internal control reviews. On the downside, the society continues to confront the various risks which has not been satisfactorily addressed. This includes below par performance in offering acceptable customer service. Our focus in the year 2020 will conduct a root cause analysis on the inherent risks domiciled in the customer service to prescribe mitigation measures. Some of the audit findings we took under the year 2021. It is the in-depth review in SIC projects, review of partnership projects, review of SIC housing projects, petty cash management, supplier management review. There is also an aspect of human resource that we also conducted. Looking at fraud and investigation, risk has continued to affect business worldwide. During the year under review, a number of investigations were done on suspected cases of irregular transactions. 3 cases were investigated and finalized for the period under review. The investigation resulted in the separation of the responsible staff with the organization. The investigation was majorly around unethical behavior, conflict of interest. There were no financial loss incurred by the society, there were no financial loss that were incurred by the society. We continue to sensitize our staff members, to improve on ethical practices and to minimize such cases. On due diligence, and the process of land acquisition in the country continues to face a number of risks, including transacting with a person with no capacity to do such properties. The cooperative in the past has dealt with dishonest persons in land acquisition process, leading to prolonged duration getting the land titles, which in turn has had an impact on handing over the project to the clients. Currently, we have ensured that we conduct an in-depth due diligence on We have continued to conduct an in-depth due diligence on lands parcel prior to onboarding and to identify any red flags. This has ensured that inherent sea risk around the project acquisition are addressed high enough. Looking at the monitoring, audit results should be continuously monitored to guarantee implementation of agreed action points with the management. We have in place a framework that periodically tracks the implementation of audit recommendations. Issues that are open post the implementation timelines are escalated to the board for further action. Closed audit issues Closed audit issues included follow-ups on suppliers' balance, weaknesses noticed in the client's contracting process, and payment process gaps, among others. In the period under review, a total of 60 audit issues were raised and action points to address the risk identified and agreed with the management and the board. The total percentage of issues closed stood at 68% and under the period, the year 2021. Implementation of audit recommendation has led to the general improvement of the society internal control. This improvement is manifested in the success land project acquisition during the year under the review. We have also increased the collection on monthly installments in the housing projects. This is attributed to the tightening of controls around the credit management. Looking at risk management, institutional risk has remained to be one of the key pillars in management. As part of risks that has been brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, the organization continues to be affected by a number of risks ranging from operation to strategic risk. During the year, we revamped our risk management practice through internal audit department. This department reviewed the risk frameworks to align to the best practices and change the business environment. The business also conducted a capacity building session for staff members to ensure their risk identification and evaluation techniques. In the year 2022, the Supervisory is keen in facilitating risk owners in the formal risk identification and documenting through the risk register. It is believed that with facilities, it is believed that we facilitate the risk-based decision-making on the organization matures into risk management practices. Looking on financial performance for the year 2021, the society posted a surplus of 195 million, as highlighted by the chair, compared to the 17 million that was recorded in the previous year. This growth in profit has been attributed to various factors, including the improved global and national economics after adverse effect of COVID-19 pandemic. While this growth is commendable, we would like to recommend the following going in the future. Looking at diversification of business to avoid over-reliance on land business, planning ahead of time to ensure products are availed in times to the market, double effort in debt collection to ensure project closure and ultimate revenue recognition. Also implementing a cost management to maximize on profitability. Leverage on technology to improve efficiency in delivering value to the customers and to the investor. Continuously rethink the strategy in the customer service to address the various concerns raised by the stakeholders. On the bit of strategy, the Supervisory Committee is committed in improving the society internal controls as mandated by both the Cooperative Society Act and the bylaws. It is predicted that in the year 2022 being an election year, we will not be short of challenges, and the committee's strategic focus will be to ensure that the board make decisions based on the data that is analyzed and reviewed, and also looking at the trends around it. Also reviewing the current KPI, key performance indicator applicable in various departments, as well as formulating the new ones. Championing of risk-based decision-making during onboarding of new projects and avoiding strategic pitfall. Implementation of the continuous cost monitoring practices to maximize on the profits. In conclusion, on behalf of the Supervisory Committee, I take the opportunity to thank the members for giving us the opportunity to serve in this organization. Our gratitude goes to the board, the management, and the staff of cooperatives, SIC cooperatives. Also looking at, also including the Ministry of Society for the support they have accorded us in the year 2021. We are looking forward to continuously collaborate with all the stakeholders in improving the governance and governance environment for SIC. Our report is actually highlighted in page 25 of the booklet that you already have. I thank you, our investors, and I wish you well in all your endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair Peter Mukera, Chair of Supervisory Committee. As part of the procedure, before we do any discussion, would want to propose and second the report. We have the chat tool that you can use, or you can call using the number on your screen. Just remember to keep on refreshing your link so that you can be able to get the latest on the tool itself. So let's get a proposer and a seconder for the Supervisory Committee report. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. This is Thomas Omondi, member number MMBR05400.
You propose?
Yeah, I propose.
Thank you very much, Thomas.
Yeah, good morning. This is Thomas Omondi,
And on the system, we have Juliet Wanyama Patience, sorry, member number 3107, who are seconded. So I think we've dispensed of that proposer and seconder. Before we move to the next agenda item, there is a request from our county director of cooperatives, who is also the chief guest for this particular session, Madam Dolphin Amero, to make her remarks. So basically what we are doing is moving the chief guest remarks up, the reason being that she has another engagement, which is a physical engagement. I think she's going to be able to let you know more about that engagement. Welcome, Madam Dolphin Amero. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman and your board, the Supervisory, all protocols observed, cooperators, good morning. My name is Dolphin Aremo. I'm the County Director of Cooperatives in Nairobi, and I'm not new to most of you. And I've come with a team from Westlands, Dagoretti Sub-County, where you fall. I have Lucy Kimani, and I have Njoroge Mwangi. They'll be taking you through elections today, and they'll be sitting in through your meeting, Mr. Chairman. So don't feel offended when I leave. It's because Mwalimu National Cooperative also has elections of delegates today, and I'm expecting about 600 members, and my presence there is required. It's a physical meeting, but we have taken it to Public Service Club, so tutakuwa kwa kiwanja. We will not be in a confined place because we still follow the protocols of COVID-19. And that is why you are having a hybrid meeting. As a ministry, we now expect you to incorporate this in your bylaws so that you don't have to keep seeking authority from the commissioner to do this meeting. I want to say, Mr. Chairman, that in your sub-county, which is Dagoretti, this is the first general meeting that we are attending. In Nairobi County, this is the third. The first in the county was Equity Bank, then Umoja Wendani, and now this is the third one. Our role in the county is to promote growth and development of cooperatives. In so doing, we have registered about 5,000 cooperatives with a portfolio of about 500 billion in terms of total assets. Without your 5 billion, Mr. Chairman, I would not be bragging about those figures. And so I appreciate the growth that I've seen in your society. You moved from 4.7 to 5B. Even with the time that we're having COVID, most cooperatives had a lot of challenges, but you managed at least to have some activities and to grow. That is normally not easy under the environment that we are having. Mr. Chairman, it's also important to recognize any new members in case there are, and to let them know that because of devolution, we are in Nairobi County. But we work very closely with the national government, and the national government, we fall under a ministry called Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries, and Cooperatives that is headed by our CS, Mr. Peter Munya. And below him is the Chief, PS, Mr. Ali Nur Ismail, then the Commissioner for Cooperatives, Mr. David Obonyo. He's a new commissioner because the previous one, Mr. Changombe, retired. As leaders and as members, it's important for you to know the structure of the cooperative and how you are regulated by the ministries. Coming to your performance, Mr. Chairman, investment cooperatives is technical business. It's not as easy as the SACCO business. In SACCO business, you mobilize savings and give out loans, and members pay and pay with interest, and so the dividends is easy to get. In investment cooperative, you have to scratch your head a little and to ensure that the projects that you undertake give reward to the members, and that the projects are also done with integrity, and that the land that you buy is not on a bypass. Because the complaints that I normally get is that I paid for a plot, and the plot that I was allocated belongs to somebody else, or is not clean, or have been refused to start a construction. I think with your chairman's report, I was able to get that members are getting value for the money that they're giving you. And I think that is the way to go. One of the agendas of the government is affordable housing. And so from where I sit, when I'm giving reports, even in the assembly, because I sit in the assembly in the county, sometimes I'm invited there to show cause why we need to exist and our achievements. And this is one of the cooperatives that I always mention, that we are achieving the agenda of affordable housing because there is something that is tangible that we can show you that members have benefited from. And so I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are also many others. A few are struggling. But I want to say that you are one that we can refer to as a role model, that we can refer people to come and learn from you. Because as I mentioned earlier, it is not easy business. The other day I was giving titles to Arambe Cooperative. It is relatively new, about 3 or 4, 5 years. But when we register a cooperative and they are able to give titles, then to us, we see that as a serious achievement, because some of them also do not take off. Some of them convert into land buying businesses where, so long as members have been allocated plots, they do not want to know what happens to those plots. I think the end result should be somebody having shelter. That, to me, should be the output, not the title deed alone. In the course of last year, Mr. Chairman, we had a discussion on the review of the Cooperative Act. We had a public participation that was done in this hall, presided over by the PS. That document has now gone to the Parliament, and we expect it to be approved anytime. Just to share with the members a little, there are a few areas that are going to change in the Cooperative Act, and that will also call upon you, Mr. Chairman, to review your bylaws so that you incorporate the new changes. So at the opportune time, the members will be informed, because the members must participate in your review of the bylaws. Just to mention a few areas that came up in that document for the sake of the members, the role of the county government and the national government is now clarified, because there has been a lot of confusion. To what extent should the director of cooperative do a few things? To what extent should the commissioner do this? So that has now been clarified, and that confusion is not going to be there anymore. When it comes to the registration of members of a cooperative, in the current document, the Cooperative Societies Act, the minimum number is 10. That is now going to move to 25, because we realize 10 is on the lower side. If one member happens to fall off, then ideally we'll be expected to liquidate, whereas our role is to promote growth and development of cooperatives, not to liquidate cooperatives. Then the Supervisory Committee, there has been concern that they also need to be called a board. And so this document now addresses that. The Supervisory Committee will also now be referred to a board. Then the Nomination Committee, I am told it is in existence here. It will now be mandatory that you have a nomination committee to vet the candidates before they come forward to present themselves for elections. Then the virtual meetings like this one, you are now having a virtual meeting. This is now going to be recognized in the law, and you will incorporate it also in your bylaws. However, in the course of those discussions, there were some contentious issues which leaders felt that they needed to be dropped. Just to mention a few, in that document, there was a proposal that there should be independent directors. These are directors who are not members. These are directors who would come into the society and be part of the board. Then the members felt that this one needs to be dropped because they feel board of directors should be people who have shares, who have deposits. That way they'll be able to have interest in the organization. Then there was the issue of the 70-year rule, that when you get to 70, then you should not be in the leadership of any cooperative. This was also discussed, and members felt like there are also farmers' cooperatives in the village. There are cooperatives for people who are retired. And so the leaders felt that this one also needs to be dropped so that we don't bar people from leadership by virtue of age. Then the issue of level of education, there was a proposal that you cannot be into the leadership if you have not attained O-level education. But then it was also felt that this should now be left to the members to decide. If they feel somebody does not have a degree but can still manage their resources, then so be it. Because we also have women groups that we convert into cooperatives, merry-go-rounds which are converted into cooperatives, and so it would be discriminative to bar these people from being in positions. So as I mentioned, it's a big document. I want to appreciate that today you are having something to present to the members by way of rebates, Mr. Chairman. And Once we have other changes, we'll be able to let you know. I am aware you are in the process of having discussion with CMA, NSC, and the Commissioner for Cooperatives. As I'd mentioned earlier to you, I'm getting an appointment next week so that you can have this discussed further. So that as you go, you get the blessings of the Commissioner. I would hate to see you going so far, then the Commissioner says that you are extending your mandate to a level that you should not. And so I will get an appointment so that we have this discussed. If this goes through, I will be very happy because this will be the starting point of a cooperative going out there to do this kind of an activity. And so we'll also send others to come and learn from you. So with those many, many remarks, I'm grateful for having been with you today and honoring me as your chief guest for this meeting. I want to say that count on our support from the Department of Cooperative. Call on us, check on us, let us not only meet once in a year in a general meeting. There is a lot more that we can benefit from each other from wherever we are seated. Thank you very much. You will be having elections today. Those who are cleared to present themselves, the members today, I want to wish you best of luck. I also want to confirm that this is one society that when we are coming for elections, I do not have to ask for enforcement. You know, I sit in Nyayo House, and you know I have the armed policemen there. So I always tell the regional commissioner, Madam, today I'm going for a Matatu meeting. Those are the ones that give me headaches. So I need reinforcement. And she quickly gives me. Here I want to confirm to you that Lucy Kimandi and Joronge Mwangi are here without any security. Thank you very much and may God bless you.
Thank you very much, Madam Dolphin Aremo, our County Director of Cooperatives. Karibu sana for gracing this occasion. I think we'll then move on with the next bit, which is Q&A. Under the Q&A, we'll still use the chat tool and the phone lines. They are open for you to be able to ask your question. I know the questions are coming through the chat tool, so keep them coming, and we have our staff and board members on standby answering these questions. I think I'll also take this opportunity to ask the chair to be able to pick up some of the questions that have come through the chat tool, just so that we dispense them off.
Thank you. Thank you, MC and Vice Chair. So I can first start off by thanking our guest as she leaves. Madam Aremo, thank you very much for gracing us and giving us that insight around the cooperatives. Much appreciated. I note quite a lot of questions that have come through. Thank you for making this quite interactive. I think the place where there are some members asking where is it that you dropped the question. The place where the place where you asked about that is the same place you dropped the question, and you can link it to a topic if you would like. So the first I see a question, I think, to the supervisory chair, asking whether he has more detail on the litigations that I spoke about. So I also see a related question around the disclosure in our financial statement by the auditor around 500,000 that we are supposed to pay out as an award to in a court case. That's the one that we lost. So I spoke about two court cases that were resolved last year. The first was one that was dismissed with costs in our favor. And our team is, I think, working with the lawyers that were representing us to determine how much the costs are for that case so that we can recover those from the litigant. This one was awarded similarly, but not in our favor. And the 500,000 are the legal costs that we were required to pay. So we lost the case and we were required to actually pay it with costs, and the 500,000 is the costs. The 11 ongoing, a bulk of them are related to acquisition of our ownership documents from various parties, some of them being, our lawyers transacting in some of the matters but holding on to our documents, some of them being on the seller's side who have not released the documents to us. We have one case of a senior member of staff with whom we had separation during the year that has now gone to the labor courts seeking support from the courts on wrongful dismissal. And that generally comprises the 11 cases without getting into the specifics of each one. In terms of the other aspects, I think around the historical projects, and I see quite a lot of questions around the historical projects. I think I would want to let the chair of the historical and problematic lands to possibly speak about what actions we are taking, and he could answer possibly, quite a lot about all of these historical projects. Mr. Edward.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so I think the first question I've seen is on an article that was posted by Cyprian Nyakundi, and the question by the member is whether there's any truth to what was stated in that article. Now, the issues raised in that article are precisely why the HPL task force was created. And what we are doing is that we are dealing with those issues one project at a time. We were dealing, right now, as Chair has mentioned, we have 19 pending projects out of 152. Our view is that the success we have had so far gives us the confidence that there's no cause for alarm. And so possibly the tone created in the article is not appropriate. We have initiated legal proceedings, and we have already succeeded in about 3 of them in this year. In prior years, of course, the strategy was to try and negotiate with the parties that were involved, tackle them through that process, and we had quite a bit of success. Now we are dealing with what I would call the hardheads, the people who want to cause us problems. And what we have noted is that the legal process in Kenya is there to protect us. And so where SIC money was used in the past to purchase certain projects, and we do not have the ownership documents, for instance, and we note that possibly a party intended to defraud this organization, we go to the law, and it is working. Just this year in January, as we were preparing for this AGM, we actually ended up receiving a title where we purchased land from a family, and then certain other family members attempted to then cause that process to be revoked, indicating that they were not consulted and they did not get a part of the money. But we went through the courts, and the courts decided in our favor, and we then received our title. We then had another, and here I'm just giving examples, we had another case where a party, having received their full monies, decided to withhold documents that were required to complete the process of transfer. So again, we sought the protection of the legal enforcement agencies, and we received our title. And now we are processing titles for our customers. And so that is the approach we are using. Of course, we receive backlash from the people who expected to benefit from these processes, but we are not afraid. We will deal with them, and we will ensure that all monies spent by SIC, especially in the pre-2017 period, are either refunded to this organization or we receive the proper ownership documents for those projects. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I trust that helps to give some clarity to our fellow investors and buyers to the various projects. I know some specific projects have been mentioned, for example, Elangatawas, and our team will be able to provide specific responses if you have, some specific question for yourself, just, reach out to our staff directly, and the staff will be able to assist. So we'll be able to see, you will be able to get a specific response on where your matter is in regards to the different projects. I saw, related to the same, a question of whether there is action being taken for the people who are culpable for putting the organization in this position in the first place. And maybe the chair, HPL, did not speak about it, but you heard him mention severally that the team is working with law enforcement agencies. And the outcomes of the activities by the law enforcement agencies will lead to whatever action is required as they will guide us. So rest assured that the issues that were easy to resolve, as the chair has said, were dealt with, and now the slightly more complex issues are being handled. And if the outcome is such that we will require to take further action, then that will be done. I don't think I note any other aspects around my report. There are a few questions, that the treasurer would be able to address on specifically on the numbers. I chose not to go into the specific numbers because that will be covered by the treasurer, whether it is on growth of the share value, whether it is on specific percentages of our performance. That is going to be done when we get to the next session, where the treasurer will be able to indicate. I think when we get to the later part of the conversation, questions around who is eligible for rebates and so on will be addressed. I don't think I covered that in my report, but it's a critical area that will be addressed later on as we progress. All the financial metrics, again, you'll be able to see those. So do not worry. You'll be able to see. In terms of recruitment of members and why we were not able to achieve a high recruitment in the year, I think there was a possibly slowdown in our acquisition activities as we tried to reorganize the business to be focused on specific business areas. We also had quite some attrition of staff, as I spoke about, related to the reorganization, and which affected certain aspects of the business. However, we expect this to be handled within the year, and the team is already there. In the budget that we have put forward, there is quite some bit of cash proposed to be used to drive up membership. We expect that to be, a cost recovery done as well, because there is a membership amount that each member, submits when they join the organization. And therefore, net, we expect that we should not be exposed as an organization because of recruiting members. We also anticipate that that will drive up, shares in the year. I don't know if Chair Supervisory has noted any questions that you would like to respond to. Chair? None? So maybe back to you, MC.
Thank you very much, Chair, and both Chair of the CMC and Chair of the Supervisory Committee. So I think we'll then now progress to the next stage. Just some statistics. So far we have 1,418 participants. Over 3,400 sessions have been opened. So this is a great attendance from you members. We appreciate that. As the auditor gets ready to come and do his presentation. Is the auditor there? Huh? Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ronald, who are our auditors this year. Remember that we are in all our social media handles, hashtag SIC at 13 AGM. We are also present at the YouTube. We are streaming on Facebook. So make sure that you like us, you share us, you comment. Thank you. Over to you, Ronald.
Board of Directors, invited guests, dear members, good morning. Before you is CPA Paul Kipchirchir from Ronald's LLP, the auditors of Safaricom Investment Cooperative for the year 2021. It's my pleasure to present to you our independent audit report relating to the financial year ended 2021, 31st December. So basically, we did our audit as per the requirements of the international standards of auditing, which basically require that we plan for the audit, we execute the audit, we compile our report and report the findings of our audit for the year 2021. We also did the interim audit as part of the statutory audit. If you can allow me, members, then I can read our independent auditor's opinion for the year 2021. So we conducted our audit in accordance with the international standards of auditing. Our responsibility basically is to adhere to those standards. And again, we are independent in accordance with the requirements of the International Ethics Standards Board for the accountants. So basically, we are independent of the Safaricom Investment Cooperative Society. The accompanying financial statements for the Safaricom Investment Cooperative Society, which are part of the report set out from page number 8 to 27 of the financial statements, which majorly comprises of the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, which basically gives highlights of the performance of the cooperative during the year in terms of the revenue generated and the expenditure. The statement of the financial position, which gives basically the net worth of the cooperative in terms of the assets and obligations. Changes in equity or the shareholders' funds, majorly the capital adequacy. The cash flow statement, movement of the cash in and out during the year 2021. Also in the report, there are summary of the significant accounting policies and actually the explanatory notes to the same financials. In our opinion, the financial statement of Safaricom Investment Cooperative Society gives a true and fair view of the statement of the society financial affairs as at 31st December 2021. The results of its operations, cash flow for the period ended in accordance with the requirements of the International Financial Reporting Standards and also the requirements of the Kenyan Cooperative Societies Act. I did say at the onset that we did our audit in accordance with the standard, that's the International Standards of Auditing, And again, we are compliant with the ethical requirements as per the International Ethics Standard Board, and also we fulfilled our responsibilities in other requirements applicable in Kenya. We believe that the audit evidence which we obtained was sufficient, and it was appropriate again to provide the basis for our opinion. Under the requirements also of the International Standards of Audit 701, we are again mandated to report to you in our professional judgment if there were any key audit matter which we feel was of most significant in our audit for the current financial period. During the year 2021, the following are the key audit matters based on our professional judgment. The first one is the system review. Basically, the system, the financials of the cooperative society are anchored in the ICT platform, so it plays a very key role. During the year 2021, the society transitioned to Microsoft Navision software. Actually, the system assists in data processing, analysis, reporting. So it plays a critical role. Post-implementation of the new system by the close of the year 2021 had not been done, basically to validate the data which was migrated from the previous system to the new system in terms of accuracy, completeness of the data which was migrated. We did perform some tests on the balances actually to ascertain the accuracy of those balances and integrity of the same. And we do recommend the society in the coming the financial year 2022 basically to conduct the post-implementation of the system. The second key audit matter in terms of compliance with the International Financial Reporting Standard, the first one, IFRS 9, in terms of the financial instruments, which basically the society needs to comply with the same by coming up with a model in terms of the expected credit loss, and majorly on the financial instruments of the society. Then the second compliance is on the IFRS 16, majorly the leases in terms of the recognition, measurement, and presentation and disclosures of the same, such that the society basically can report them as required by the standard in terms of the IFRS 16 leases. The last key audit matter was in terms of the contingent liabilities. We did actually assess the legal matters, and there exist various matters in court that were still pending litigation as at the close of the year 2021. This actually was significant. They were of significant importance during the audit, since the outcome of the same may have material impact on the results of the reported financials of the society. So definitely the society needs to, going forward, have contingent liabilities on the pending cases, because again there is a complexity in determining actually the possible outcome of those pending legal matters. We did circulate to the various lawyers for the society to actually ascertain the status of the same, and we did also obtain the representation from the management concerning the same. The management responsibility is basically preparation and fair presentation of the financial statement in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standards and also the requirements of the Kenyan Cooperative Societies Act, which I do confirm that the financials have been prepared and presented in conformity with the IFRS and the Kenyan Cooperative Society. The responsibilities majorly of the management committee is to design controls, implement and majorly maintain the relevant controls such that the accounts can be presented fairly. Our responsibility as the external auditors is to express an opinion on this financial statement based on our audit, which we conducted in accordance with the international standards of auditing, whereby we are required to comply, plan, execute, and obtain the reasonable assurance on the annual financial statements, which are free from any material misstatements. As part of our audit in accordance with the standard, we exercise professional judgment, and also we do maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We are also mandated to report to you investors other legal requirements as required by the Kenyan Cooperative Societies Act, which we do report to you that the financial statements of Safaricom investment cooperatives are in agreement with the books of account kept by the society, and based on our audit, nothing came to our attention that causes us to believe that the society business was not conducted, one, in accordance with the provisions of the Cooperative Societies Act, secondly, the Cooperative Societies objectives, the bylaws, and any other resolutions made by the society's general meeting. That means that the society actually is complying with the provisions of the Cooperative Societies Act. Secondly, the society is complying with the Cooperative Societies objectives, the bylaws, and the resolutions which are made by the general meeting. We did audit the financials for the year 2021, and the same financials again was approved by the Commissioner of Cooperatives as an indication that they are good to be presented to you investors. Our report was signed by the engagement partner, practicing number 1865, and it was signed on 28th of January 2022. CPA Ronald Bossi. Thank you, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much for Ronald's, that's the representative from Ronald's LLP. The next item on this would be a proposer and a seconder for the auditor's report. Or we can take that after the treasurer comes in so that we have a proposer and a seconder. Treasurer Vincent, please go ahead and do your presentation.
Our chief guest in absentia, who is also the director of cooperatives at the county, our fellow investors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to present to you the Treasurer's report at this 13th annual general meeting. I refer you to page 13 of the annual report for my statement, and also to page 36 for the details of the financial statements that I will be walking you through. But before I begin, just some background information on the backdrop against which we are presenting these financial statements today. We began the financial year 2021 with the government rolling back the COVID relief measures that had been put in place to help Kenyans weather the effects of COVID-19. If you remember, we had corporate income tax reduced to 25% from the previous 30%, as well as pay as you earn for employees. And then VAT was also reduced to 14%. All that was rolled back as we began January 2021. Of course, that had the impact of reducing, consumer wallets, hence, what then becomes available for our members to invest. But it was not all gloom. The recent report by the Central Bank of Kenya indicates that the economy actually grew 8% in 2021. And for those of you that follow closely the economic performance, you remember that in 2020, the economy actually shrunk 0.3%. Other important indicators are also within a reasonable range. If we look at inflation, inflation actually closed the year at 5.6%, way below the upper limit of central banks' 7.5%. The shilling, of course, continued to be under pressure. In the year, we lost 8% of the value against the dollar. So the shilling continues to depreciate. I think even as we look at it today, it is still under a lot of pressure. Of course, that impacts imports. So for those of us that are engaged in the import business, we have to pay much more to bring, the products and, the services that we offer, offshore. So those basically are the impact that affected us in 2021. Although our cooperative, went through that kind of storm, we still had, strong performance. Looking at our financial statements, land continues to be, our key revenue source, accounting for close to 90% of overall revenues. If you look at land, we actually grew 173% to 868 million compared to 317 million in the last year. Of course, a lot of effort was put into achieving that feat. When we started the year, one of the things that the Real Estate Committee did was to do a market survey. So the lands that we did buy in the financial year, the 7 projects that we did, were actually motivated by market demand. Chairman did mention, the uptake of Kibos and Olpejeta that flew off the shelf. In a month, I think we had done close to, over 90% of, those pieces of land. The other area that I wish to mention that has given us the good results is around the titling process. There were many challenges during the year. Of course, registries closed down, and the RE chairman has mentioned that in her report, if you could take time to go through it. But amidst all those challenges, we were able to bring to our members the most number of titles in the financial year. We actually did 1,900 compared to 1,500 in the previous year. The target for the RA committee is to turn around those titles within 60 days, and we'll be holding them accountable to deliver that. Of course, if you look at the HPL report as well, we have 19 projects, from the 152 that we've done in the past that we would call distressed. So the HPL committee has also done a good job in availing some of those properties for sale into the market. So that basically is, the overall picture of how we were able to drive, land performance during the financial year. Of course, looking at the housing revenues, which is also a key component of our overall revenue picture, that did decline by 38% to 75 million from 122 million the previous year. The reason for that is we concentrated on clearing the units that were outstanding when we began the financial year. So we were selling Bluebells, we were selling Ruaka and Kantafu as well. As we speak today, we only have 20 units that are outstanding that we plan to dispose in the year 2022. Another good report is around Zaria. If you look at the financial statements again, we did report 80% growth in revenues that we recognized, from Zaria to 23 million from 12.9 million in the last financial year. I wish to bring to our members' attention that only 76 out of the 330 units that are available for sale have been fully paid for, hence recognized in accordance with IFRS 15 requirements. So we still have a big opportunity around recognition of revenues from Zaria. Moving down to how we performed from an expense perspective, I wish to draw our members' attention to the fact that in spite, the big growth on the top line, we did grow our overall or total expenses by 18% to 200 million from 169 million. And I just wish to, mention a few of the areas that grew just to bring our members into the picture. One of the areas that grew exponentially is around financial expenses. In that figure, we have 28.9 million that relates to interest earning deposits. If you remember, we did commence our 2-year countdown in the year 2020. So come 24th February, the ID is going to expire. Hence, we'll need to pay our members the 28 million, which we plan to do in the month of March. So that is the significant one there. And of course, there's also the bit, because we combine that with professional expenses, there's a growth in that area as well to 20.7 from 9.1 million in the previous year. As Chair did mention, we had a number of cases, actually 11 in total, that we had to defend. And I think this board and management is really committed to ensuring that, the historical issues that we are facing are either dealt with, through a court process or dealt with through law enforcement. So we have a number of those cases, as you can see in the HPL report, lying with the DCI. Basically, we are saying that those that made this organization incur losses should account for what they did. So we are not shying away from taking them to court or taking them through the law enforcement process. Moving on, in terms of our operating profits, we did grow that in the year to 195 million from 17.6 million in the year 2020. Of course, that majorly influenced by the growth that we saw in the top line and the optimization that we did around our cost of sales and then our expenses. In the current financial year, we shall be declaring rebates to our members of 117 million, which is a big growth compared to the 12 million that we declared in the last financial year. So from a P&L perspective, in summary, that is how your organization did perform in the financial year just ended 2021. I'll do a bit of mention around, the balance sheet. So looking at our balance sheet, we actually grew our balance sheet amidst the challenges that we faced during the financial year. Our overall balance sheet actually grew 7% to 5.2 billion in the financial year. I also wish to mention that cash, which is the blood that runs any business, did well. We really, in the financial year, we didn't have to, borrow aggressively to fund our operations. We actually did collect 1 billion shillings from our operations compared to the 456 that we did collect in the financial year in the previous financial year. Looking at our cash and cash equivalents, we are actually up 172 million compared to 151 million in the previous financial year. Debt recovery, remains one of our focus areas, and I'm happy to report that in the financial year just ended, we actually reduced our overall debt by 22% from 1.2 billion in the last financial year to 961 million in the current financial year. We continue to focus on collections. I know a lot of our buyers, faced myriad of challenges, but that does not mean that we don't have to collect, debts. I know that for, the owners of Bluebells, we had to go the extra mile of locking, some of the houses. We know that is an inconvenience, but we must endeavor to give returns to our members for their hard-earned money. I also wish to draw our members' attention to our reserves. As you are aware, and I did mention in the last financial year, that our reserves are actually the arsenal that is available to us to use for investment purposes. In the last financial year, we closed at negative 101 million. That has improved in the current financial year by 47% to 53.8 million. We continue to focus on this number because, as Chairman did mention about the unquoted securities platform that we plan to go into, we can never go there with negative reserves. So we'll focus on extinguishing that as our performance continues to improve. I'll also implore our members that we need to keep retaining part of our surplus. I think part of the mistakes that we made in the past was to pay everything that this organization earned in rebates, which is not sustainable for an organization that wishes to grow. I wouldn't want to go through the details of the P&L in the interest of time because, as I mentioned, the P&L is available. Happy to take any questions, from our members after you've run through it. Yeah, I think the overall P&L is on the screen. Yeah, that's the overall P&L. I've spoken, around most of it, beginning from, our revenues to our expenses, all the way to the rebates that we've declared, leaving us with a net surplus for the year of 73 million compared to 7 million in the previous financial year. So I'll stop at that and see, Bwana MC, if I need to move straight on to the budget or we take questions.
Thank you, Treasurer. I think that what we need to do is to, first of all, get a proposer and a seconder so that when you go through your budgets, then we have discussions or questions and answer session. So can we get a proposer for the first bit, which was the auditor's report, and a seconder? Yeah.
We have UFA Limited Investment, member number 1011, proposing the presentation of the 2021 audited financial statements. So now we need a seconder.
Yeah, so we need a seconder. Yeah, thank you. It has been seconded by John Ochieng Paul, member number 1481. Thank you, John. Yeah, so I think we'll progress to propose and second the Treasurer's report. You can use the chat tool, you can use the phone line.
We have Veronica Okello, member number 70, proposing.
Thank you, Veronica. So we're waiting for a seconder of the report so that we can have a question and answer session on the Treasurer's report.
There are various members who've proposed on the charts, but please put your member number.
Okay, thank you very much, Connie Mutambi, member number 1369, who has seconded the Treasurer's report. So I think we should change something a bit, probably have a question and answer session. Actually, just follow the program rather than combining the budgets and the financial statements. So let's have the question and answer session now, combining the auditor's report and the audited financial statements.
Yeah, so there's a question from Isaiah Otieno mentioning that SIC appears to be asset rich, but cash poor. And I think judging from where our organization is coming from, for the last, from 2019, actually, we did make a loss. In 2020, we recovered a bit. In 2021, we are now getting to the path of growth. In terms of the assets that we are holding, I also saw another question previously, looking at our sellable assets, somebody asking which proportion of those assets are unavailable for sale, what falls under the purview of HPL. The figure is about 20%, so we are focusing on unlocking that because the assets actually need to turn to be liquid for us to avail cash. So there's a lot of effort to address, the 1.6 billion that we are holding in sellable inventory. Of course, it has grown about 25% from 1.2 the previous year, but the additions that we've added there are for the current 7 projects that are still on sale. So I'm not worried about the current ones, but a bit about the past ones, which we are unlocking. So I want to assure you that the efforts that we are putting into unlocking, those projects that are stuck should be able to translate into, good liquidity for the organization. Thank you. So Samuel Karanga, there's a question from you on why we are retaining 40% of our earnings. If you remember, in the last AGM, there was a specific resolution on that aspect. We agreed, as investors, that we need to pay off 60% of our net income and then retain the balance. And that was informed by, partly by the reserve situation and partly by the fact that we now need to wean ourselves of, borrowing cash to pay for our day-to-day operation. So I think it's a good thing, judging by where we are coming from. But again, good organizations attempt, to retain more to strengthen, their balance sheet. If you look at listed companies, you'll note that a number of them actually didn't pay any dividends because of the circumstances that we are passing through in the COVID era. Thank you.
Oh, we have Laban Gashie, who is also asking, will the IED facility continue in the 2022-2024 cycle? What will be the interest rate that you'll offer?
Thank you, Vice Chair. So IED, I would say, was kind of a temporary measure that we put in place because of the circumstances that the organization was going through. So you note that the interest rates that we pay on IED are quite high and might not necessarily be sustainable for the organization. So there's a specific resolution that we will be, I believe most of you have been able to go through it, that is seeking to amend how we are going to deal with IED going forward. Yes, IED will still be there, but with terms that are different from what we've had over the last 2 years. So for the one that is expiring on 24th of Feb, we shall be paying out, both the interest and principal in March. But of course, we are encouraging our members to plow back, the principal. Thank you.
So keep the questions coming. All right. So as we go along, I think we'll have another. Moving on, I think our treasurer, please go ahead and present to us 2022-2023 budget. Over to you.
Thank you, MC. So happy to present the 2022 budget and the 2023. Maybe for our new investors in the cooperative movement, the board and management cannot spend any money without approval. So the 2023 budget is actually a placeholder because the new financial year ordinarily begins before we have an AGM. So as we speak today, as we approve, this current budget, the financial year 2022 has actually begun. That is why we did approve it in the last financial year in principle, but details then come to be provided in the current budget. So maybe just as an introduction before I get to the details of the budget, This budget is aligned to our 3-year strategic plan. As the Chair again did mention, we've been working on that we want to sustain into posterity. And of course, with that sustained growth, then we give progressive returns to our investors. That basically would be the key outcome. We want to get back to the double-digit, rebates that we gave to our investors in the past, as well as ensuring that our organization is strong. Digging into, the budget for the year 2022, in the year 2021, of course, looking at the into 2% from the 75 million that we reported in the year 2021. And how we are going to achieve that is aggressively getting into the market and selling the current stocks that we are holding, and also, looking at ways of, partnering with the house vendors to help in, their sales process. But predominantly, this is going to come out of the stocks that we are currently holding. In 2023, of course, we grow to 115 million. We would then expect to have started, see a bit of sales coming from housing, but, that would go into 2024 before, revenues from that start coming in significantly. Of course, there is the cost of sales there of 73 million, giving us a net profit of 18 million in 2022 and 23 million in 2023. Then revenue from land projects, we estimate to grow this. We budget to grow this by 133% to 2.04 billion from the current 874 million that we reported as actuals in the year 20. Of course, further grow it to 2.5 billion in the year 2023. How are we going to do this? What we've done is we have new stock that we are going to buy, and the model that we are going to use is the model that has proved efficient, where we only buy projects that we can sell, within the shortest time. So we'll get in new stock at about 2 billion, and we forecast to recognize only 50% of that. Of course, that is pessimistic. We potentially would recognize more based on, how fast we turn around titles and, how members then also repay their debts from those sales. Of course, existing stocks, I've mentioned about the 1.6 billion that we are holding in sellable inventory. We plan to sell most of that in the year 2022. Then we are also revamping our sales team. We are bringing in additional, salespeople. As most of you will appreciate, our organization is actually a sales organization. So we've increasingly seen the value of an effective sales team. So I'll talk about that when I talk about the headcount budget. Then lastly is just around process efficiencies that I talked about, how quickly do we turn around titles? How do we make sure that the lands that we buy go through appropriate due diligence so that we don't get to our bad past where we accumulated historical problematic land? So I'm happy with, what I'm seeing currently, where, the lands the projects that we've engaged in have actually resulted in titles being issued to our members in good time. We'll continue to sustain that model into the budget period. So from our land income, we will report net, I would call it, if you take the revenue of 2 billion minus the cost of sales of 1.3, we'll report 632 as gross revenues, as net, I'll call it net for now, from land, and then grow that to 893 million in the following financial year, 2023. of course, the report from the BD chair also has highlighted a few areas that they'll be focusing on to grow our revenues from new business. So in the year, there'll be Zaria. We still have, a lot of opportunity for revenue recognition from Zaria, where we will be reporting 72 million. And then we've also incorporated SIC management company to basically look at property management. We also expect that to generate, revenues in terms of new business. And then our model for taking distressed property and turning them into a property that are sellable will also continue. So we expect to get 106 million gross revenue from that line of net revenue from that line, of course, taking away any costs from that line of business. And then in 2023, grow it to 133 million. Other income, basically rental, membership, fixed deposits. We also plan to bring in 32 million in the 2022 financial year and 41 million in the next financial year. Overall, our gross profit, taking housing, land, and other income, would bring us gross profit of 789 million in the year 2022 and grow that to 1.1 billion in 2023 period. So quite an ambitious target, but given the run that we've seen in the financial year 2021, we are convinced that management and, of course, with the oversight from the board, should be in a position or will be in a position to deliver the 789 million in gross profit for the financial year 2022. Coming down to cost, so maybe just to also talk about cost. So one of the things that we've done is to try and keep costs growing at below the top line. So if you look at our overall cost, other than personnel that I'll talk into, we are more or less, growing at a good level. There are few areas where we actually, for example, in the financial and professional, where we actually decreasing in terms of the cost. So in terms of administration, most of that administration expense is really around, software maintenance and then cloud and cybersecurity. I think there are few providers in that area who are credible. Those that have read in the media, a number of circles have actually fallen into the hands of cyber criminals. We purpose to keep our organization safe from that perspective. So we plan to spend 23 million in that administration area. Of course, in there are also office admin expenses, of cleaning the office and all that. So that also sits in there. But the two that I've called earlier are the significant expense lines in that expense category. In 2023, that grows to 29 million. So a growth year on year of 19%. Then in terms of personnel, so as I did mention, there are a number of things that we've been doing as part of our strategy to reposition this organization for future growth. One of the things that we've done is to just enshrine, good corporate governance and internal controls in the organization. So as the supervisory committee did mention, committee chair did mention, we looked at, a number of areas where, we found instances of fraud where, our staff was not fitting within the DNA that we expect. We were, quick to get them out of the organization. So we want to have a staff complement that is attuned to the culture that we want to grow this entity going forward. So I think that is one of the areas that we've critically looked at. And part of it was to look at our staff remuneration. So we did a job evaluation and salary survey. Of course, it did show that we were quite below, the benchmark for, cooperatives in our category. So we did review, some of the staff salary into this financial year. That wasn't significant because it came to about 6% thereabout year-on-year growth. But again, to meet the strategy that we are looking at, in terms of you'll have your 3-year strategy, then you'll need an organization design and business model that then delivers that strategy. We found out that the way we are currently structured does not give SIC a chance to be efficient and effective into the future. We've had instances in the past where the board, as opposed to doing an oversight role and taking their fiduciary responsibility, were actually involved heavily in day-to-day running of the organization. We feel that is not sustainable as a board, and we need to have an office that can effectively run this organization. So what we've done is to identify the revenue lines that will drive us into the future and structured our organization to fit into those business lines that we plan to grow. So in the current financial year, which is the 2022 financial year, we will be onboarding a substantive CEO to drive this strategy going forward. As you're aware, we've not had a substantive CEO since the last one left. In addition, we will be onboarding, or we have onboarded an investment manager, again, with the qualifications that would help us to look for opportunities. If you look at BD Chair's report, I think there's been a bit of struggle in that area. The Chair also alluded to it, that we've talked about diversification of our top line, but we have not been able to achieve it because it was more of a board-driven other than a secretariat-driven affair. So we have brought in an investment manager to help us drive that new business area. Then we've also brought in the housing manager. We are getting into a big project on affordable housing, and we also felt that we need somebody to run with that business line. Housing makes a significant portion of our revenue, so the housing manager will be able to take up that role. Of course, because of internal controls and governance areas, we also need a finance manager. Our finance manager has been the acting CEO, and we feel that she's fit to do some other things, on the revenue front. So she will be relocating into that new role, and then we'll need to get on board a finance manager to handle that. I mentioned that we are a sales organization, so we will be beefing up our sales team by an additional 28 sales executives to grow, the numbers that we are seeing. Of course, with very tight, delivery KPIs. I think the Secretariat has been very efficient on that. So where, the team is not able to consistently deliver, then we separate with them and get people that can, help us deliver that top line for the investors. And of course, we're also looking at a marketing manager to take care of our brand. So overall, this positions SIC as a future fit organization. We also looked at, the various parameters, because for world-class organizations, you'd look at revenue per employee, you'd look at, KPIs that would make sure that that headcount is aligned to what is expected. We looked at that and we saw that it is very much aligned to the top line that we want to deliver. So there's a growth in terms of personnel expenses from the 77 million that we have there to 141 million in the year 2022. And then, of course, that grows by inflation the following year to 177. So I've dwelt a lot on that because that really is the, the growth area that influences, the rest of our total expenditure. So if I look at, the other line, financial and professional, that will actually decline in the financial year, given, the effort that we've made in the current year to address both strategy and also to address, the financial aspects of the business. In terms of governance, growth there. Part of what we are seeing there is training, because as we get on board members. They need to be trained other than the normal allowances that would also sit under that line. Then depreciation and amortization, that grows to 8 million because we have onboarded a new ERP in the current financial year. As far as the old pre-2017 projects are concerned, good traction, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we may still need to spend some money on law enforcement as well as on legal mechanism to unlock that value, because 20% of 1.6 billion is quite a significant value compared to the 21 million that we will probably spend to just unlock it and put it in a good place. Of course, if you look at what we spent under that provision, we did spend 5 million because the expenditure that we did the previous year in 2020 actually sustained us through 2021 period. Then business development, we plan to explore with the new investment manager. We plan to explore areas, research into areas that would give us, the top line that we are looking at in terms of new business. So we've factored in 43 million we factored in 31 million in 2022, which grows to 39 million in 2023. So overall, our total expenditure will be 290 million, growing from the 200 million actual that we had in 2021, and then that grows to 351 million in 2023. Our profit before tax, or our net income, we budget to close the year 2022 at 499 million compared to 195 million in 2021, and then grow it further to 738 million in 2023. So members, in a nutshell, that is how our P&L is going to look like. This has been, a lot of iterations with our consultant, with management, with staff, and with the board, and we are convinced that we shall be able to deliver, this budget in the year 2022. I'll move on to our CapEx budget. We don't plan to spend much in terms of CapEx in the year 2022. We'll need to buy laptops. Of course, that includes replacements in the financial year, and then for new staff who will also join us. So we plan to spend 4.8 million on 60 units of laptops. Then office fittings. Our plan with the growth in staff complement, we plan to take a bit of additional space to accommodate, the new staff. So we will need to fit, that office space, and we plan to spend 12 million for that. We need a typewriter. I know people are wondering why we need a typewriter in this dispensation. This is for the purpose of titles because, the titling team saw some efficiency in terms of what happens in the land registries, things that we can do on our side to speed up the process at the registries for title issuance. So we will be spending 80,000 to buy them that typewriter. Of course, we'll also need a printer for 127 million. And then lastly, we also plan to be an innovative organization. So we've put in a budget of 8 million just around, innovation areas that we can partner with innovators and, see the opportunities that exist out there, for our organization. So from CapEx perspective, we plan to spend 25 million shillings. I think I've talked about budget assumptions, so I'll not delve into that and move on to our enablers. So we will continue with our focus on debt collection. So mostly, concerned about the historical one. So we are employing, all manner of tactics, including, professional debt collectors to just make sure that the 900 million that we have out there in the balance sheet actually gets converted into working capital for the organization. So for those that for our members who owe us, I think we would like to appeal to you to reach a payment plan, especially for those that are overdue. We also try to do this with a cooperative phase, so that we also don't inconvenience, our members who are also the reason why we exist. So the appeal there, kindly meet your debt obligations. New projects, I think the key one there would be the affordable housing, but we will also be onboarding new land projects within the framework that I did mention, onboarding projects that fly off the shelf, that do not give us historical or do not generate into problematic lands. Customer experience, I think this has been our Achilles heel. We are weak, sometimes it's good to admit, but we are working very hard to ensure that our customer experience continues improving. That is one area that we'll also be beefing up, just to make sure that when our customers call, their calls are answered, their emails are responded to. So we will be big in the financial year on that. We are glad about, the members portal with the ERP now coming on board. We have an additional avenue to just make sure that the channels through which we communicate to our members are increased. Of course, our brand has suffered a beating in the past. Looks like we are slowly getting out of the woods. The negative comments that we used to see have slowly receded as we've tackled head-on the historical, land problems that we've had. So you will see us a lot more, on social media. You will see us on the mainstream media, just making sure that we continue building this brand, because this is also related to the floating of our shares. We know that there are a number of our members who would want an avenue to dispose of their shares, but because of this brand problem, that has not been very possible. So we will focus on just improving our appeal out there. Of course, that begins internally by having, the culture that I talked about within our staff complement. And lastly, all this cannot happen if we don't have, effective, internal processes. So we have put in place policies, so we'll make sure that those policies are adhered to. We have a very progressive internal audit team that makes sure that everything that we do in this organization is above board. And as we mentioned, we have zero tolerance, for fraudulent activities, whether they are from the board or even from the staff. I think members have had a very progressive board, and I really wish to ask that we continue with that mandate that we have as members to put in place board value to our organization. Thank you, fellow members. Thank you as our shareholders. I wish to thank our management that have driven themselves to give us the good results that we've reported today. To thank our stakeholders, and to really ask that there's no big problem that cannot be resolved. Put in a lot of money in this SIC organization. And the best that we can do as members, as shareholders, is to be good brand ambassadors and call out any areas where you wish, to get remedial action. I think all of us as board members are available. The chairman, is very proactive. Reach out to him. And the CEO, I think Sarah, has also been available. All of us are attuned to turning around this organization, and nothing, I believe, is impossible on our path in achieving that. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Vincent. This being an investment society, cooperative society, that is the climax of everything that we stand for, because we invest so that we can be able to get rebates, and that we are able to also grow the value of our shares. There is a gentleman who has asked, how did we manage to increase our rebates in 2021 the 40% that has been retained is what has been the 40. No, this was a question relating to the how did we manage to increase our reserves. Sorry, and it's because of the 40% that we have retained. The total amount, actually, when you look at the financial, is 195 million. 40% has been retained as retained earnings. So moving forward, we need to have a proposer and a seconder for the budget so that we can discuss it. The chat lines are open. The phone lines are also open. Let's get a proposer and a seconder so that we can have the discussion. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Yes, that is fine. Hello?
Hello. Go ahead.
Sorry, my name is Erastus Chetty, member number MMBR02498. I propose the Treasurer's report.
Thank you very much.
Budget.
Thank you very much, Erastus. We are looking for a seconder. A seconder for the report.
We have Raphael Kialo, member number 2430.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kialo, for seconding. Raphael Chalo has proposed, and yet Erastus had proposed. So can we get a seconder? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
I wanted to second the Treasurer's report.
And what's your name and member number?
My name is George Minor.
George Minor.
1524.
Member number 1524. Thank you, George. Thanks.
And what's your name and
question answer. Okay, so we'll take this opportunity to have a question and answer session. We'll be looking at the questions relating to the budget that our Treasurer Vincent has proposed or presented. I think I'll give it over to our chair here to take us through a couple of questions that have come through the chat.
Thank you, Treasurer, and thank you, MC, Vice Chair. All right, let me just answer this. Hello, welcome. Give us your member number and your name and your question if you have any.
Okay, so we'll take this opportunity to have a question and answer session. We'll be looking at the questions relating to the budget that our Treasurer.
Hello? Is there a member online?
Give it over to our
On
chair
call?
here to take us through a couple of questions that have come through the chat. Thank you.
Okay, we could not communicate with the member who was online. So quite a number of questions have come through that transcend the various financial reports and budget that have been raised. Let me start off with a comment that has come through from Stephen Muredi, representing 2021 Limited, where you are identifying an opportunity for low-cost studio, one-bedroom apartments along major Matatu corridors. Maybe Chair of ARI could
going to consider the second phase based on what we will have seen as a success of that project. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Engineer Emily. All right, we seem to have another caller, member on call. Good afternoon. Welcome to the AGM. Please give us your member number and your name and pose the question that you might have.
My name is Oscar Ikinya, and my member number is 01212.
Thank you, Oscar. Go ahead.
First, I must say that I vehemently object the budget that has been raised. I have a problem with, increase of salaries, laptops, and fittings that go shilling when we're in a downturn. And I also have a problem with, buying more land where we have land in dispute. What measures are these, what new measures are these that are being put in place that weren't there to take care of, the land issues that were there previously? The other thing is we have been talking about water. Now, if the property that members bought were availed water, then we would be able to make use of that land so that we get more money, so that we can pump it into SIC. I don't know whether you see the logic in that. Yeah, this is maybe a different revenue scheme of availing water, not just to members but to the general public. And then number two, we have been talking about WhatsApp groups for the projects year after year. I mean, all you need to do is just go to university students here and give them a small work or intern them to do something like that. Won't take long. We have been repeating things over and over and over. I see loopholes. We are paying lawyers, we are paying police for things that are unnecessary, draining. Then you come and tell us that, there are problems. We have been facing challenges. These challenges are self-inflicted. And I have a problem with that, a big problem. I see the management running SEC down. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Oscar. And Oscar, I think you have raised 4 questions in total, not 2. One is around the staff complement and the growth that you're seeing in the budget around staff. The second is around the plans on the real estate committee to buy more land and whether it is prudent for us to do that while we still have some few historical issues to resolve. The third you have raised is about water and provision of water in our existing projects. And the fourth is around, creating environments for people in the same project to engage. And the proposal you have put forward is the WhatsApp groups. So maybe some of these are a bit general, but I could possibly, put this back, I think, especially on the question of why we are buying more land to the chair of the ARI committee to explain what the committee has seen last year in the year 2021, what we are seeing at the beginning of this year, 2022, with the projects that they are doing, and why the committee thinks it is prudent for us to continue with new projects. I think the chair, HPL, did speak about the actions we are taking to resolve the historical and problematic lands and what the expectation is. He did indicate in his initial comments that though the previous years we were trying to handle the process without too much, financial exposure or external experts. The team identified that we have reached a point where the projects that are now at hand for resolution require a different approach. And that's why we are engaging law enforcement agencies and all judicial bodies that we might need to engage to resolve them. It is not a waste of money. It is actually, a protection of the organization. And maybe the chair of HPL will explain how the financials actually stack up and why the approach we are taking is necessary. As regards, provision of water and engagement groups in the future, we can evaluate that a little further. There are some projects where WhatsApp groups already exist and members that are in those projects actually interact and plan their various activities. Then after we are done with that, I think you will allow us not to pick another call for now and address the treasurer and a few to the rest of the committee. So, Chair Ari, you could pick up once you're.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the issue of land purchases, I would just like to assure investors that we are being driven by market demand that we are seeing. And we can only mention success cases that we've had in the past year. Being driven by that approach, the lands that we've purchased in Nanyuki, in Kimuka, Kitengela, Katani, we have seen when you go through the reports that we have presented today, and it gives us the assurance that the demand is still there. And even going forward, the areas that we have selected to continue with the investments in the coming year, they are still following the same approach, really now focusing on areas that we are sure that we have demand. We have showcased the case of Kibos, Kisumu, that was launched in December, and within 2 weeks we had already sold out, and we still have an overflow. So such kind of areas we are planning for a second.
I want to add to that by indicating in the year 2020, we had gross sales from the real estate committee of slightly upwards of 400 million, while us in the year 2021, that grew to 940 million, 920 million if I'm not wrong. You can confirm from the financial statement. This would not have been possible without the launch of, and also goes to answer another question that has been raised around why we are increasing our sales staff. During the year 2020, we increased our sales staff by 10 so that we could be able to attain the numbers. We did not hit the number that we in the budget that has been presented by the treasurer, we are proposing to grow that figure from 920-something million to upwards of 1.8 billion. So we are actually proposing to double that number yet again. It is not easy, and this work is actually done by people. They need to go out, talk to people, and collect. So they are paid both on conversion in terms of signing and ensuring that the client has paid the minimum amount, but also because you must remember in 2018, one of our biggest problems was, or 2019, was adopting IFRS, which requires that the buyer and the seller need to meet their obligation. On the buyer's side is for them to pay 100%. On the seller side, which is the organization, is to transfer. So for us to be able to hit that aggressive number of 1.8 billion in sales, you can only imagine that has to pass through our organization. It is not fit. It requires quite a bit of human manpower, And that's why we found that a sales complement of about 50 would be adequate to help us hit that number. I will pass it on to the secretary wants to make.
I just wanted to add that, of course, it's sustainable to continuously increase the sales numbers for us to be able to grow our top line. The world has gone digital, and that is why we have an innovation.
I think just before I hand it to the chair HPL, that is closely associated with the question around the ERP and the value that we are getting from the ERP. This has been raised by, or I forget the name, I can't remember the name of the person, I'll check again. Kenya Investment Women Group that had raised this question. Management is one of the modules that we have switched on that allows us to connect to the ERP, to our social channels, Twitter, Facebook, etc., and be able to quickly respond to feedback. It also allows us to now seamlessly connect the calls coming through our hotline, a tracker and history. And we expect to see full benefits of this during the year 2022. As part of that whole project, we also have the member and customer facing channels where we have a portal, a web portal that will be coming up, which is the SIC Mkononi that the Honorary Secretary has spoken about, which is an app that will be available both to our clients who might not be members, but also our members, allowing for easy interaction with both yourself as a member in terms of all the assets you have, and including, the prepares, interest earning deposits, your shares, and so on, as well as our buyers who will be seeing the properties that we have, the ones they have bought, their payment history, and the likes. So we are quite excited that the investment will bring us true value in the year. Chair, HPL.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll address the question of why are we spending money and effort trying to recover the lands that are at risk of loss. And I'll put it down as a sort of story and say, in the pre-2017 period, we purchased properties as an organization. We sold those properties to customers, and then some of the customers did not receive their titles. Now, what then do you expect would happen in 2018? Those customers will keep demanding for their titles. Those customers will not buy any more properties from your organization. Those customers will also pass the message to other people that do not buy from this organization. So as we are making our plans here and we say our budget for next year is X amount and the investors are waiting to receive returns of ABC amount, that money must come from customers purchasing from us. It must come from customers who trust us to deliver on our obligations. In addition, you then have those customers who paid, say, half the amount for the projects they are buying into, and then will then indicate that because you have not yet given me a title for an earlier project, I am not going to pay the rest of the money. The treasurer read out an amount of 1.2 billion. Those are customers who are saying HPL. In terms of figures, I've already mentioned the 1.4 billion, the 1.2 billion that was at the outstanding debt. I think we were able to quickly accelerate about 300 million shillings in repayments, just from the fact that those customers were receiving their titles. We then have the actual figures that we are spending as an organization. The treasurer has pointed out that we have about 20% of our net assets at risk. Yet the actual budget that we have for HPL is only 18 million shillings. 18 million shillings to recover 1.4. 18 million shillings to recover all the amounts of money that are owed to us by customers who are refusing to pay because they have not received their titles. I think it is worth it to pursue that road. And I agree, this is a self-inflicted wound. If in those days people were ensuring that they have done their due diligence, that the board and management were ensuring that the properties were well secured in the hands of SIC even before attempting to sell to customers, we will not be here. But we are here now. And the money that is at risk is the money that's supposed to be paid to you. Today we are talking about a net surplus of 117. That whole amount would have disappeared to refund customers. A figure of about 160 million shillings would have had to go to refunding customers who are demanding for their money back. And then the investors of the organization will have zero. In addition, we'll then have to look for cash flows of about 120 million shillings to pass on to these customers. So right now, it's about recovery. It's about ensuring that the organization can continue as a going concern, even as we are resolving these issues for customers, and then as we are building our business to bring better returns to you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you for that elaborate explanation. I think we can take 2 more questions. Then we are going to have my fellow board members respond to some of the other questions before we give it back to the treasurer. So the calls can come in. Good afternoon. Welcome to the AGM. Please give us your name and your member number, and then you can ask your question. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon again. My name is Erastus Chetty, member number 02498. I have a comment and maybe 2 or 3 questions. So the comment is that I would really want to appreciate the board and management of SIC for the good performance in the year 2021. I think you really did a great job in the midst of the hard economic situation that prevailed in the country. I would not want to say that I'm against in Kenya or in the globe, where that we're doing into land. So that was a comment and also some sort of a suggestion. 2 questions. The first question is on the consult. When the treasurer was taking us through the budget, he did mention that there was support from the consultant. So I just wanted to ask, and of course.
And this will be the last call.
Just comment the committee. I think in the last 2 or 3 years, this is sort of the best I've had in terms of.
We